Hey guys, obviously I'm not Johnny. My name is Russell Broderick, or Derek White apparently for some of you, and I've been the editor here for the channel for the better part of a year now. Johnny, as we talked about on the NBA Finals preview pod, is moving this weekend, and that gave me the opportunity to do a video that I've been wanting to do for quite some time now. So, Bill Simmons had this clip from his podcast on his YouTube channel called The History of the NBA's Best Player Belt, where he looked at the players throughout NBA history since 1970 that held the NBA's Best Player Championship. I love this idea, and I've been thinking about this premise in this unique way for a long time as a really big pro wrestling fan, but I personally would go about who I picked a little bit differently than Bill. So here's my plan. I'm going to go all the way back to 1960 to determine who was the league's best player in each era and who are the rightful holders of the NBA's Best Player Championship belt. Here's my criteria. So first and foremost, personal accolades like MVPs, championships, finals MVPs, and all NBA selections. Because basketball, more than any other team sport, can be impacted and influenced by one single player. So hardware like rings and MVPs are great indicators of who had the belt in their era. Second, playoffs. Playoff wins, rounds won, meaning how far these belt holders went each postseason, and their personal playoff stats. Because obviously the regular season matters way less today than in previous eras, but the playoffs have always shown who the best teams and players are in the league. So I'll be factoring that in greatly to determine our belt holders. Third, league shifting ability, meaning did this player change the way basketball is played? If so, that receives a bonus. I can't really explain that more without giving some stuff away, but I'll be sure to explain more when the time comes and we have a player where that is a very big impact, and we will have a few in that category. And lastly, team quality. Were you on the most talented team, or did you carry teams with less talent? Players with less talent on their teams get a bonus if they win despite that lack of talent, but it doesn't always factor in to the highest extent more than some of the things above it. That's why it is last on the list. I'm hoping these four pillars will help you get where I'm coming from as we go along from one champ to the next, but there can only be one first belt holder. So let's get into the video and travel back in time. 1960 to 1966, Bill Russell. We start with one of my all-time favorite players, the legendary Bill Russell, who was the first belt holder ever from 1960 to 1966. Russell's career was defined by winning championships, getting all 6 titles possible during this span for the Celtics. His ability to lead Boston to winning was unmatched, earning him 4 MVP awards during his reign, including 1961-62, despite Wilt's 50 points per game and Oscar's triple-double during that same season. Russell's greatest competitor during this period, and the #1 contender for the belt, was absolutely Wilt Chamberlain, whose individual dominance in scoring and rebounding was 2K level fake at the time. However, what puts Russell over the edge was his defensive dominance and his amazing rebounding to trigger fast breaks that completely revolutionized the game. It was Bill's knack for winning and his defensive genius that made him our very first NBA Best Player champion. 1966 to 1969, Wilt Chamberlain. In the 66 to 67 season, Wilt Chamberlain took the Best Player championship by force, leading his Philadelphia 76ers over Bill Russell to win the East, then over Rick Barry, who dropped almost 41 points per game in the finals, and brolic Nate Thurmond to win his first NBA title. Wilt's dominance was characterized by his 2 MVPs and this historic 1967 championship run, where he finally learned to trust his teammates and became truly unstoppable. Even though Bill Russell slid to the #1 contender, he still won 2 chips in this era to Wilt's 1. But Wilt has 2 MVPs to Russell's 0 during this span. And for me, that made the difference when thinking about who was the absolute best in the world at the time. The Big Dipper's scoring went down to just over 23 points per game, but he became the league's first and only center to lead the NBA in assists for a whole season, and carried his 76ers and then Lakers to a 213-77 record during this 3-year run with the belt. 1970 to 1975, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The dawn of a new decade saw the rise of a new superstar, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's taking the belt in 1970. Kareem's skyhook was one of the most unstoppable moves in basketball, and honestly still is to this day. But at this point in his career, he had everything. Winning 3 MVPs and leading the Milwaukee Bucks to a championship in 1971, Kareem's impact on both ends of the floor was extraordinary. Honestly though, it was a tough decision between Kareem and the Doctor, Julius Erving, who is our #1 contender during this era. Dr. J dominated the ABA during the early 70s, winning 2 MVPs, an ABA title, and the ABA playoffs MVP in 1974. However, Kareem was just as dominant, scored more points, and played in the more competitive league. It's okay though, Dr. J will get his opportunity to hold that gold. Speaking of which, 1976 to 1979, Julius Erving. See what I mean? I feel like this is the perfect time to give Doc the belt. Even though he doesn't enter the NBA until the following season, Erving put Giannis-esque stats up to win the MVP, playoff MVP, and ABA championship in 1976, while Kareem won the MVP in the NBA despite not making the playoffs, which is the only time that's ever happened in history, and I feel pretty comfortable saying that that's not happening ever again. Dr. J's ABA success transitioned seamlessly to the NBA, where he continued to have playoff success, playing in 38 playoff games for Philly in his first 3 seasons with the team, and making the NBA Finals immediately in 1977. Kareem and Moses Malone, with his amazing numbers for Houston, were exceptional during this period and were both in contention for the belt. But Dr. J making back-to-back finals for 2 different teams in 2 totally different leagues made it clear to me that he deserved the title of the best player in the world. 1980 to 1983, Moses Malone. Moses Malone deserves this award for similar reasons to the man he's taking the belt from, and he even came to Philly to take it from him. Big Mo is the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. Not a glamour stat by any means, but when you can add 27 points per game to those nearly 15 rebounds per game, you get back-to-back MVP awards for 2 different teams, and a championship season where your team goes 12-1 in the playoffs. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar continued to be in the mix for the belt he held 10 years ago at this point, but Magic Johnson, while being amazing for the longevity of the captain's career, made it so difficult for me to say Kareem should be considered the best player in the world at this point. 1984 to 1986, Larry Bird. Larry Legend's time with the belt was marked by his exceptional shooting, passing, and basketball IQ, which were all at their apex at this time. Bird led the Boston Celtics to a combined regular season and playoff record of 235-73, which got Larry 2 NBA championships and MVP awards for all 3 seasons of his reign on top. Magic Johnson was Bird's greatest rival and easily the #1 contender during this mid-80s period, but Bird was unquestionably the best player in the world. Until 1987 to 1990, Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson took the belt directly from Larry Bird after the finals in 1987, when Bird told the media essentially that after Magic won the ring and took home finals MVP. Magic's versatility, court vision, and leadership were unmatched after he took the proverbial keys from Kareem and drove the Showtime Lakers to the finals in 3 out of the 4 years he was on top and held the belt. Michael Jordan was beginning to rise and was the obvious #1 contender in the late 80s, but Magic was completely dominating in every aspect of the game at this point and was undeniably the best player in the world in the late 80s. 1991 to 1993, Michael Jordan. It's amazing how the belt continued to be up for grabs during the NBA Finals for these last few champions, and MJ finally getting his hands on the gold was no exception. Many believe that Magic was a washed-up version of himself by 1991, largely because he'd be retired by the very next season due to the HIV virus. However, Magic was second in MVP voting in 91, and got his team to yet another NBA Finals. So for me, it's a very legitimate passing of the torch, or in our case, the belt. MJ was king of the world from 91 to 93, and in my opinion was the absolute best version of himself, combining elite athleticism with next level two-way basketball IQ. Jordan's scoring ability, defensive prowess, and competitive drive led the Bulls to their first three-peat. Charles Barkley and David Robinson were exceptional also in this time, but Jordan's unmatched success in this era made him clearly the best player in the world, by a comfortable margin. 1994 and 1995, Akeem Olajuwon. With Jordan temporarily retired, the belt was essentially vacated for the first time ever, and there were a ton of contenders chomping at the bits to take the crown. One man was able to snatch the belt from the crowd of contenders, and his name is Akeem the Dream Olajuwon. Akeem's sick footwork, Hall of Fame defense, and leadership won this legend the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Championship, and Finals MVP in 1993. Then the Dream led the Houston Rockets to back-to-back championships, earning another Finals MVP and becoming the only NBA All-Star to ever win back-to-back titles without playing with another All-Star. David Robinson and Shaquille O'Neal were two strong contenders for the belt, but Olajuwon's hardware during these two seasons gave him the significant edge. 1996 to 1998, Michael Jordan. MJ returned with a vengeance from 96 to 98, becoming the first player to get the Best Player Championship belt twice. MJ won all three rings available and the Finals MVPs to go with them, and he probably should have won all three regular season MVPs as well, if not for the abomination that was the 1997 MVP race. Karl Malone and Shaq were definitely solid during this period, but Jordan's return left no doubt who the best player and rightful owner of the Best Player Championship belt was for the 1990s. 1999 to 2002, Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was the league's most dominant force ever from 99 to 2002, thanks to his combination of size, strength, and agility that he finally combined with a killer mentality. Shaq's Lakers are still the last team to ever three-peat in the NBA, and Shaq got all the Finals MVPs for those appearances. Tim Duncan and Allen Iverson were also in the mix for the belt during this time, but Shaq's dominance in the playoffs made him for sure this era's absolute best. 2003 to 2007, Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan's consistent excellence earned him the title of the league's best player for nearly half of the 2000s. During these 5 seasons, Duncan won 71.6% of the 500 games he played between the regular season and playoffs, leading the Spurs to 3 championships and 2 Finals MVPs. Duncan's fundamentals, defense, and leadership were crucial to holding the belt over Steve Nash's offensive wizardry and Kobe's scoring dominance during this stretch. 2008 to 2010, Kobe Bryant. The Black Mamba finally snatches the title here that I'm sure he's felt like he's held since his first NBA championship. Kobe carried the Lakers to all 3 NBA Finals during this 3-year stretch, and won 2 championships and Finals MVPs to go with them. Kobe's scoring ability and Mamba mentality were unmatched. His work ethic and determination really did inspire a generation, like Johnny, and my friend and co-host Dario, who you've probably seen on the podcast here that we do on the channel. And that was at its all-time absolute peak here in the late 2000s. A young and up-and-coming LeBron James was a legitimate #1 contender, and some might say the rightful holder of the belt during this late 2000s period. But Kobe's championship success and clutch performances made him the champion during these years for me. 2011 to 2014, LeBron James. LeBron took his talents to South Beach and took the belt from Kobe and all other contenders in 2011, beginning his unprecedented run of 8 straight NBA Finals appearances. King James took his already amazing talents to a completely different level in Miami, delivering some of the best performances we've ever seen and making it obvious who deserved the belt at this time. LeBron's versatility, basketball IQ, and physical prowess were unparalleled, getting him 2 MVPs, 2 rings, and 2 Finals MVPs for the Heat. A young, slim reaper Kevin Durant for Oklahoma City was a formidable challenger and obvious #1 contender in this era. But LeBron's overall impact and success made him the best player in the world by a fairly wide margin. 2015 to 2018, Steph Curry. Chef Curry revolutionized the game from 2015 to 2018. His incredible shooting range changed how teams approached offense. Because before this time, some entire teams weren't shooting the volume of threes that Curry was shooting on his own, and he was draining them, like when he made 402 in 2016. Speaking of 2016, the Chef became the first unanimous MVP in NBA history, leading a Warriors team that won 73 games in the regular season. Some may feel LeBron James should have held on to the belt for an extended reign once he went back to Cleveland. But it didn't feel right considering Curry's impact on the game and his success in the regular season and playoffs if he never got his hands on the title. So I'm giving it to him here. 2019 to 2021, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis's dominance from 2019 to 2021 was marked by his incredible versatility and athleticism. Giannis had some insane statistical seasons, including scoring 30 points per game in only 30 minutes per game, which is absolutely crazy and earned him one of his 2 MVPs during this stretch. The Greek Freak was able to win the Milwaukee Bucks their first NBA championship since former belt holder Kareem did it exactly 50 years earlier in 2021. LeBron once again remained a strong #1 contender, showing his ridiculous longevity. But Giannis's two-way dominance and unique skill set made him the best player in the world during this stretch. 2022 to 2024, Nikola Jokic. Despite the endless amount of competition in the NBA right now, Nikola Jokic has emerged as the best player in the world and our current holder of the belt. Jokic's incredible passing, scoring, and basketball IQ have led the Denver Nuggets to new heights, including the 2023 NBA title, where Jokic won the Finals MVP and completely annihilated every other team in his way the entire playoffs. Jokic has transformed the center position into something that we have never seen before. So Giannis, Joel Embiid, and Luka, despite all being great players, must take a backseat to the Joker until further notice. Well, there you have it. That's the NBA's Best Player Championship belt, as decided by Derek White. Each player brought something unique to the game, shaping basketball into what it is today. But what do you guys think? Do you agree with my picks? Also, who will be the next NBA great to claim the title as the league's best player? Let me know in the comments section below. As for me, I may be doing more of these on the Johnny Arnett Clips page we started earlier this year, but Johnny will be back in the next video for our usual content. Having said that, if you enjoyed this and made it to the end, thank you so much, and I appreciate each and every one of you immensely. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and we'll see you in the next video.